He's excited. Right, Jack, right.
The nervous laugh.
Straight in with a laugh, mate. Cool. So, well, welcome to the podcast, mate. Thank you for your time in terms of coming on and having a little chat about, well, I guess 2021 and how we're going to frame this year. But I think with all guests, like with this sort of stuff, it's important to have a bit of a background as to where you come from. So I wondered if to start with, you just wanted to give me a little bit of an insight, because I've obviously seen your social media. You're quite, I think you're quite proactive on your social media, but let's hear a little bit of an overview of your background and how you've sort of ended up doing what you do and where you are today.
Okay. How far back do you want me to go? Like to where it all kind of the catalyst of where what happened?
Mate, go all in. Yeah, let's get a decent background.
Are we talking as well about career and going into personal training, or just in general? Like,
so let's talk about your personal training, as in like your own training, and then we'll talk a little bit about your business as well in a little bit. So we'll just start with you.
Okay, so pretty much my kind of journey started when I was at boarding school. So I was sent to boarding school. I say sent. My parents wanted me to get a good upbringing and go get a good education, and I went to a school called Old Swinford Hospital at the time. And
not Hogwarts,
no, well, it was actually very old school. Like, it used to be. I think it's all changed now, but it used to be an all boys school as well. So you did literally feel like you were going to Hogwarts, and it was quite an old school with like lots of heritage. But pretty much, I started in year 7, and I was actually quite a shy kid, really skinny naturally, and like just never had much confidence. And bearing in mind this kind of boarding school was built around sport and rugby in particular, you've got some quite, for their age, big lads showing up at this school. So for me, it being an all boys boarding school as well, it's very much, you soon learn when you get into the older houses, so to speak, that it's alpha male. It's like kind of, you know, if you're the big lad, you can hold your own. And if you're the skinnier lad, you're getting told by what the big lad's saying and you're doing what he's saying.
Did you board? Did you live in?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to be a day student originally. And bearing in mind, I was in year 7 when you applied to go in. And like that's like, you're probably like 12, 13. And I ended up not being clever enough, because you only had at the time 16 lads who were allowed to be a normal day student, so to speak. So that's pretty much like what most people would do. They'd go to school and then go home. So I had to opt for the weekly boarding option, which was basically you stay Monday to Friday at school, and then you go home on the weekend. And then the other option was full-time boarding.
Yeah.
But luckily enough, I went to the weekly option. But anyway, so how it all started was I was about 15, 16, and this is the age when you're starting to get interested in girls. And obviously, you know, your confidence is starting to develop, so to speak. And I was very shy still at this age. And like, I was like one of the later lads to kiss a bird, for example. And like, I remember my mate, who was more of a, like, into his sport at the time, and he was like kind of in the rugby teams. He was like, mate, you've got to sort your situation out. You're really skinny. You're not like, you know, you're not holding your own when you're going out and like chasing these girls. You need to just kind of up your game. So I was too timid at the time to go to the gym. So I started doing push-ups and dumbbell curls in my room with him. And then it kind of become a catalyst of like, I'm actually starting to see a few results here and I want to get into this. And the addiction started to grow as soon as I started seeing the results. And then little by little, you start, you know, you get your gym membership, you start following a program, and before you know it, you're 18 and you're thinking to yourself, actually, I really enjoy this. And I remember listening to, I think it was Alan Watts, he said, like, if you can find a job you love and absolutely become a master of it, then you'll be able to get paid for it one day. And he said, if you had all the money in the world, what would you want to do? And at the time I was like 16 to 18 when I heard this quote, and I was like, I'd love to do this as a job. And then I ended up basically pursuing this path, long story short. But pretty much I went to Cardiff Uni at the time as well. So my parents were always into the old school kind of way of thinking of, you've got to go into university, you got to get good grades, and you got to go down a professional route with a degree. Yeah. And I kind of rebelled against that. So pretty much, because I've never really enjoyed the physical like learning in schools. I thought it was very limited, and you feel like you're learning stuff which is always like kind of on curriculum rather than what you're going to need in reality. Yeah. So that's why I never really agreed with school at the first time, at the first hurdle really. So when it got to uni, I was like, I don't really want to be here.
Did you do all right at school, like regardless?
You know what? My first grades was an X and a U. I didn't even know that was an X. Like, that was disqualification, but pretty much that's another story in itself. Yeah, I was naturally really bad, but that was actually another thing. Like, fitness enabled me to get better at education. I know this sounds back like really weird to say, but like when my GCSEs and studying was happening when I first got into fitness, and my determination in the gym actually transferred into my work. Like when I first got those grades back, and obviously my dad was paying money for me to go to this boarding school, I felt really ashamed that I'd got him, like, he spent all this money on me, and he's like, and I've got him a U and an X, and I was just like, this is an embarrassment. So I made it my personal mission to get obsessed with getting good at these exams, and I ended up coming away with like A's and B's.
So would you say, like, do you think initially it was were you a disruptive child, or was you just not
Shy to
just
start
didn't
with.
compute? Like, yeah, because like I think I always associate sort of underachievement, I guess is the word for yourself, with maybe a disconnect with the subject material, but also a desire to maybe, like you say, sort of rebel and push against it. Because I mean, I was similar in the sense that I didn't want to be defined by letters on a piece of paper.
Yeah, and like I totally agree with that, and I think I did rebel what the structure was, because I've always seen it as it's herd mentality. Like the people I started watching online when I was younger, like they really spoke about this problem in society in general, and it's like people do things not because it's the right thing to do. They do it because it's often just the thing what's always been done, and I've never agreed with that kind of way of thinking, and it applies to a lot of things. And I just think career paths and education is one of those massive things where there is such an expectation of what people should do. And it's normally based on previous expectations, which are outdated now, I think.
Yeah.
So, but going back to school, really, I've always struggled, because I've recently discovered, like when I was at uni before I left, I actually potentially have ADHD, dyslexia, and dyspraxia. So it's a bit of a list, like, but I can't say I have it because it was only a scan, so to speak. But looking back at my childhood and how I like kind of think and speak and read things, I've definitely probably on that spectrum somewhere, and I think that's what made it difficult for me at school. But I also just didn't see the logic in, like, at the end of the day, if you put it bluntly, most of us go to school, work hard in our exams, and go to uni to be able to get a high paying job, pretty much, or a job of your dreams. And to me, when I read certain books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and kind of The Unfair Advantage, you realize that that's not the most effective or efficient route to get to that end goal.
Yeah.
So I read that at 16 when all my GCSEs and exams were starting. I thought to myself, this is backwards. Like, this is not how I want to go down this route. And that's what's basically then started me rebelling against, like, the teachers and stuff a bit more, like, and just being a bit more disruptive. Yeah, but I was actually quite shy until about 16, and then it started, like, as soon as I started training and my confidence grew, I started to be a bit more rebellious and a little bit in class. Yeah, just to tell.
Yeah. So with the personal training, then, I guess I first met you at BCB, Black Country Barber, maybe 2 years ago? Has it been that long? Ish.
Probably, yeah. The time flies, doesn't it? To be fair.
Yeah. But how long have you actually been doing it for?
So I started my personal training journey when I was 18. So I just left sixth form, and I had that gap in summer where it was kind of, you go into university and you've got like a long summer. So I did an intense 8-week course to become a personal trainer level 2 and 3. It was by the training room at the time, or the training group, or something along that line.
Did you go and do it over in Solihull?
Yeah, I did. I did. It weren't the best, I ain't gonna lie. Like, the lads who taught it were a good laugh. Like, but you're getting taught stuff which, again, going back to the education system, it's not relevant. Like, half the stuff you're learning you don't actually use when you're a personal trainer teaching your actual clients.
So much of it is practical, isn't it?
And also
in
like
real terms,
in real life. Yeah, I was going to say the funniest part is in the training group, your training group, a lot of it's theory, and you're not doing much practical. You're only doing the practical to tick off the boxes. Sadly, but yeah, that's what started it. And then I went to uni, and I didn't actually do any personal training for about half a year. And I thought at uni, I was like, I don't want to be here. So I kind of dropped out after 3 months. I enjoyed freshers, don't you worry. I got that experience. And then pretty much, so I'm glad I went, though, because I saw what, I don't have to ask myself what if now, like, oh, what if I'd gone to uni? Because I went to uni, and I can tell you it's so overhyped. And a lot of it, you are spending a lot of time on your own, believe it or not. Everyone's going saying it's a really sociable place. It's actually not. A lot of your roommates end up being out doing their own things, I found.
Yeah.
And it can be quite an isolated place, actually, I found. Especially if you're different to the average person.
Did you complete your degree?
Nah, I lasted 3 months.
Oh, okay.
I remember, I'll never forget it. I went to the first seminar, right? And he said, and I went to go study business management.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying at the time, he put 2 pictures up, like one was of Richard Branson and all these entrepreneurs who I aspired to be like one day, right? And then the other picture were these old men with white beards. And they were like, and he was saying, a lot of you probably joined this course to study these people, which were like the entrepreneurs. And he goes, we won't really talk about any of that. It's going to be all about these theorists and all this. And I thought, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I want. So yeah. I just realised I'm paying $9,000 a year for an education which isn't going to be practical, to sum it up. I just thought this is a bad investment and a bad way of getting myself into debt before I even get going, which is another conversation in itself. Like,
yeah, fair enough. Okay, cool. So in terms of how have you coped over the last year, I guess, on a personal level, first of all, but then on a business level as well? Obviously, we've had a lot of disruptions with the COVID situation, but yeah, I guess I feel like you've done fairly well out of it from my perceptions, but that's just what I see online.
Yeah, so I've just been. I try and stay as transparent as I can online, and I'm probably too transparent in
You
some
share a
degrees.
lot,
Like,
don't
yes,
you?
I share more than the average person, yeah, because to me, right, I follow people online who are transparent and authentic. There's a lot of fake people online, and I'm not afraid to say, look, I've failed here or I fucked up there, and I learn just like anyone else. And Gary Vee said it best, like you're best off documenting your journey rather than kind of creating your journey, like and putting yourself in this perception of, oh, I know everything already, and I'm just going to tell people that. I kind of say it from a perspective of, look, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm trialing, and all of it's going towards me just ultimately chasing my craziest dreams and ambitions, which if I told people what they were, you'd think I was nuts, like, or like you'd think like the odds are totally against me. And like that's how it's always gone, really. Like even when I started doing fitness, it was kind of like people were laughing at me because I was that skinny kid in school who was not the fit. I mean, mate, I'm talking when we did the CrossFit, like you do not cross country running, I'd be back with like the fat people, so to speak, the ones who would be not to say that offensively, but like the people who were out of shape. Who I was skinny, and you'd think I'd be good at it. I was at the very back of everyone who's unfit. And it was embarrassing for me personally. And that's like, you know, when you beat the odds in certain aspects, such as in fitness, or you achieve a lift, what you've been chasing for a good year or 2 years, whatever distance it's been, gives you that confidence then. And then you kind of start pursuing other things and other ambitions then, don't you?
It's amazing how that confidence sort of manifests and it becomes like part of your personality though, isn't it?
100%. And like without fitness, I wouldn't be who I am today. That's why I'm so passionate about it. And I'm sure you are as well, because it shapes your personality and who you are.
Yeah.
If you take it serious. Some people don't ever get to experience that though, because they give up too soon. Like you've got to fight through it, and it tends to be the people who have trained for years what get to experience the benefits of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because I'm seeing a few. So I guess that in my circle at the moment, I've got, for example, a couple of friends that are I'm trying to instill that mentality of it into them, and especially around the sort of intensity at which you need to work to actually yield results, because you know, you've probably experienced this as well, but like you've got people that come and they have one PT session a week, and then they're wondering why they're not getting any results, and it's because they're doing an hour's training a week. And when they're in that hour, that all they're doing is moaning and you know, working at a suboptimal sort of intensity, and then you know it's very hard. You know, sometimes you get people that pick it up straight away. I've got a client who's just started recently in the past 3 months, and he's the kind of guy that you say, oh, okay, right, you're gonna jump 2 meters, and he'll jump beyond 2 meters. So he'll do anything.
Always overreaching and trying to overachieve.
Yeah, and he's like, and he's written down his goals for me this year, and I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, mate, we're gonna surpass these. Like, you know, you're yet to realize just how capable you are, and actually how much more ambition you can have within those goals, because you just haven't found that yet, but you would, like, I can see.
Well, that's the beauty of it though, isn't it? Like you discover you're set a lot. Like I remember, and you'll probably relate to a lift as well. You walk into, I walked into my first ever gym and I saw the 40 kilo dumbbells, and I'm looking at them going, one day they're mine, like one day. And at the time, if I'd told someone that, like in the gym, especially like a beefy guy, or they'd laugh at me going, you ain't never touching them, mate. And like, I'm talking like I was used to struggle shoulder pressing or like chest pressing the 12 kilo dumbbells. So for a kid who's struggling with 12s to say, I want to touch the 40s one day, it's kind of a bit nuts, really. And then when you achieve that after 3-4 years of training or whatever, however long it takes, like a long time though, you then realize like if I put enough work in and hours in, I can achieve crazy things. Like, and then goals keep moving. Then you get to the 40s, think, well, there's another gym now which has got 50s. Let's try and chase those 50s. Like, and then it just the goals keep moving, and before you know it, you're doing like things you never thought possible. Like,
when you get into those 70s at BCB, Jackie,
I won't be pressing them. I might RDL them or Farmer Welcome, but I don't think I'll ever press them naturally. Nuts if I did. But in terms of how it's gone with COVID, though, going back to your question, because this is the first time I've ever podcasted, so if the conversations go sideways, I do apologise.
It's good, man.
Pretty much. I remember in March when shit hit the fan, pretty much. I remember after, because I would do a little bit of reading in the side and studying of like personal development and self-development. And I remember all these people, especially in the financial world, saying like, you know, 2008 when shit hit the fan, that was one of the biggest opportunities of creating wealth. And that was when everyone was panicking. And if you speak to most people about 2008, they'll say it was horrific. But the people who are rich and the people who have got like made success of themselves in terms of like financial gain, they all took advantage of '08 and made it some of their best years in business. So I thought this is that opportunity knocking right now. And I saw all the stock market just going straight down like a rocket ship. And because of all the people I follow online as well, they're all saying this is a huge opportunity. Like this is like a once in a lifetime thing. Yeah. So I was like, and I'm bearing in mind when I was reading all this, I was like, I agreed. And I was like, this is huge. Everyone else is worrying about bog roll and like, stockpiling. Stockpile stocks but I didn't know anything about it. So come March and the lockdown with the gyms being closed, I just sat on my laptop for hours, and I'm talking 8 hours a day, obsessed, reading about stocks, learning about stocks. And I just kind of went trial and error from there. And it's been all right, to be fair. Don't get me wrong, like I made some serious gains to start with, and I got a bit probably overly cocky with my kind of approach, like most amateurs would. And I was in CCL at one point, and if anyone knows about stocks, right, CCL is a roller coaster. It's a cruise liner basically, and this Carnival, thing was like Carnival Cruise, yeah. So Carnival Cruise was like at $6-7 at the time, or pound, whatever you want to call it. And I thought this is an opportunity here, so I bought in, and it went up to like 12 pounds a share. So like that went up significantly. It was crazy. So like you're talking, I was seeing these things swing up and down 30% in a day. Some days it was mental. Like to put that in perspective, most stocks will appreciate maybe if you're in an index by like 8 or 10% a year. Mm-hmm. So to see a swing upwards of like 30% in a day is just unheard of. So when I was in that and I was just getting greedy with my gains, I thought I'm going to hold this and hold it. And what happened was basically a massive crash, and it all come crashing down. I then ended up being negative, but then I've gone in, and that was more of a short-term play I was playing. So going back to the stocks again, I then moved my money and took it out, had a rethink and reassess and relearn a new strategy, because I was doing what's known as swing trading, but I was holding too long really. Right. Hence I got burnt. So then I reattacked it and went, right, I'm going more value investing now and long-term thinking, because I prefer that and it suits my personality. Because you can easily get obsessed with checking stocks every single day and it becomes unhealthy. Yeah. Messes with your head when you're seeing the red number get bigger and bigger and you're thinking this ain't looking good. So yeah, I'm now in Tesla, and I'm pretty deep in Tesla, and I do believe, and I said this at the time in about April when I should have bought then really, but I just think that company is the future in terms of like what's going to happen in the next coming 3 to 10 years. Like it's going to just dominate. And I've done really well with that so far, bearing in mind probably in a bit more of a bull market with Tesla right now, which basically means everyone's confident with it. But yeah, that's like up 60%, nearly 70% now, I think last time I checked, which is mad. So all in all, I've netted probably nothing in essence, but then I've still regained the losses I've made. Does that make sense? And I've kept a lot, like the biggest win I had at the time before things hit the fan was about 30%. And then now I'm up 70%. So to me, that's still a victory. And I think in the next 3 to 5 years, it'll obviously pay off this knowledge I've gained over the past year with stock trading. So that was the main thing I spent my time doing, to be fair, in lockdown. So I think it was a positive for me.
Yeah, good.
A huge skill that is.
A huge skill.
I think investing and learning how to make your money work for you is the most underrated, understudied skill by everyone.
Yeah,
So I'm proud I've learned that. So that's what I think everyone should learn about, how to master their health and fitness and how to make more money, in my opinion. Because there are two things everyone should want, or at least kind of want to master to their level of what they're accepted, what want. Does that make sense?
Why is it? Okay, so I think there's you talk a lot about like material possession and how it's less important to you.
Though. Okay, sorry, my bad. Yeah, sorry, I thought you were going down another rabbit hole with that.
No. So like, and how material possession isn't very important to you, but the sort of wealth creation side of things is, right? Because the example you use often on social media is your car, right?
Oh yeah, the banger,
mate. Not a Tesla.
For those of you who probably won't know, if you don't follow me, you wouldn't know this, but I ripped my car. I had a Fiesta, nothing special, and I ended up in a bit of a car crash pretty much, and it was my fault. And I then had two choices, like anyone would. You can either, because I had some money saved, and I thought, I could either get a car on a lease and look successful and look like I'm doing all right, get whatever whatever you can for £200-300 a month, which you probably do all right with and look all right on Instagram. But I thought to myself, why would I want to put myself into that position where I could be wasting £300 a month on a car plus petrol insurance, when I can just get an old banger, 300 quid, 350 quid, and just ride that thing until it breaks. And I've had that thing over a year now, and it owes me nothing. It's a bit of an adrenaline rush when I get in it. It's entertaining, but once you get over it as well, you just honestly, it's fine. And I think too many people play the short-term game, in the sense of they're thinking kind of, how do I impress people right now, rather than thinking what's best for them personally in the future.
When do you do you see yourself have you got an idea in your head about when you will maybe get
a better car,
get a safer car?
It's not like it's unsafe. I take the mick because it's like it's just funny. Like, you get into someone who's got a modern car compared to my car, because it's 1999. You just think, bloody hell, this is a bit of a roller coaster. Like, I don't feel safe on a motorway. Put it that way. Like,
Have you got some tapes, mate?
Have I got some what? Sorry,
some tapes for the tape deck.
I just put my you'll laugh because my mate Chris always takes the piss out of me, but I've got a Bluetooth speaker in there, mate, so it's probably got better like just a little like handheld thing which you put in the gym sound like, or I put my headphones in. But jokes aside, it's one of those decisions which I'll look back on in like 5-10 years and think that was a massive decision at the time for me to do that. Do you know what I mean? Because so many people just won't see this as a significant difference, but it is. I read the book The Slight Edge. I think you've read it as well, haven't you?
No, I haven't. Go on, tell me more.
Recommend that book. So The Slight Edge is basically a mindset of thinking like every small little decision you make, which seems so seemingly insignificant in the moment you make it, adds up big time in the future. And it basically goes to tell you in the book. Yeah, compounding pretty much. It's like another book about compounding, but the way he explains it with that, you're always on a curve, be it up or down. Like it makes you really question your day-to-day activities and decisions, basically. But yeah, I'd study people like Grant Cardone as well. And Grant Cardone.
What do you make of him? He's an interesting character, isn't he?
I think he's got some really good gems, but he's also sadly just does some things which are very questionable. That's what my opinion would be. But overall,
he's very like cowboyish, isn't he? Like he's a bit of yeehaw.
He's a nightmare. Like he is. Yeah, he's yeehaw. Yeah, he reminds me of me really. Like he can be really like bottled and contained, and he'll just go off on one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you think like with him, you've got to mine the good stuff, haven't you?
Totally agree. Some of his I think his
content production, mate, is unreal though.
Yeah, so like someone like him, you've got to almost ask yourself, how can this man be fake when he's so consistent for years? Like that, you know. But like you say, I think you put it perfectly. Like you've got to mine the gems from that bloke, and like he has some really interesting thought processes, and his kind of step-by-step formula to like financial freedom, so to speak, is second to none. I think. Like once you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you understand the concepts of that, he gives you more practical advice. Basically, learn how to expand your current incomes, like add other income flows, and also like the biggest one, which is why I bought that car in the first place, is act like you're broke. So like. He said at one point, I was a millionaire and nobody would have known because I was still driving a Beta, like at the time in his book. And I just laughed because it's so true. Like, and then now he's like got like over $1 billion worth of real estate. And you think to yourself, Christ almighty, you must know something. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
You don't just get to his level of success by accident, do you?
So in terms of this year, obviously we've just literally gone straight back into another lockdown. You know, we're kind of coming up towards that year mark now of going in and out of these lockdowns, and regardless of what your thoughts are on them, obviously you've kind of got like a couple of options in terms of whether you're going to make the most of them or not. And I think for me personally, like last year battered me and I didn't get my head around it, and then it's only really like this year that I feel like I'm in a position where I can start leveraging the situation, but also just refuse to be like suppressed by it anymore. So you know that I personally am now taking actions to make sure that actually I thrive this year, regardless of whether we're in lockdown or not, because I'm fed up of, you know, things outside of my control, in essence dictating, you know, my actions that could be within my control, if that makes sense.
100%.
So yeah, so I'm curious as to how you're framing this year on a personal level, and then also just coming back to the PT side of things, how you're also communicating to your clients how they should be looking at it.
So in terms of how I'm framing it, I entered this year knowing we were probably going to go into another lockdown. I think that's crucial because some people have their head in the sand and kind of deny that things are going to happen. And I think once you start planning for the future, worst case scenarios, you realize that you've already mentally prepared for it. So when that event happens, it's kind of not as much of a shock for someone who's kind of not prepared for it mentally. So I knew this was probably going to happen. So what I tend to do is when shit hits the fan, as I like to call it, is especially in terms of lockdowns, I'm just rechanging my goals. Like you asked me yesterday, I had completely different goals to what I'm going to have now.
Yeah.
So you just change what your approach is. So in terms of fitness, for my clients at home, for example, I'll just be saying to them, right, we had a goal of hip thrust in X amount of weight. Now the goal is to do X amount of single leg hip thrust with a load on your leg, like for example. So you just tweak the goals, or like for the girls, which I like, because I specialize in female training. A lot of them tend to be kind of like, I try and get them to master push-ups, for example, because that's a huge goal for a lot of people who want to train with me. And they tend to say like, they'll achieve the first 3 and I'm like, that's great, but now we're going to try and get to 20. So a lot of them I'll be saying, right, our goal is by the end of this lockdown, because it's going to be about 6 weeks or longer potentially, like I was going to say, look, we're going to try and get 12 solid press ups out and then aim for the 20 mark. So you're going to get different, so you just switch your goals from maybe like more barbell weightlifting orientated goals to more body weight orientated goals, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also see it as a mental challenge as well. I think that's the most important perspective to see it as. Like, this is how you weather and grow a solid mindset. You don't do it by reading books. You do it by actually overcoming adversity, in my opinion. And this is an adversity. Like, this is a real life problem, like, which you're going to have to face now. You got no other option to face. Otherwise, you either sit there and mope, which is what I did in lockdown 1. I'm not going to lie. I learned about stocks, but trust me, I was moping for ages, just going, this is like, my PT side kind of slipped a little bit because I kind of got this, I love gyms. I hate boot camps in parks. I'm not into that. I tried it when I was younger and I didn't get a good taste of it in my mouth. I like small group training in gyms, but it's just any outdoor, I just don't get on with it, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a big blow for me having gyms closed, but you just got to adapt. And my mindset today is much better from the previous lockdowns. Each lockdown I've seen to have got stronger and stronger mentally. So it's a good sign. It's like resistance training, isn't it? But for your brain.
Sets and reps, mate. Callous in the mind, bro.
Sets and reps of, the cold showers are really good as well. Like, I don't know if you do that, but I'm a bit of a nutter with some of the stuff I try and do. Like,
I'm seasonal with the cold showers, mate. I'll do it all summer, not in the winter.
Yeah, that's the funny part. Now it's the hard part. Like, I did it. I said January 1st, I'm back in there, because I did do a period of time where I was not doing them for a while, and you notice your headspace slipping a bit. To be fair, when you don't do it, when you get into that routine. I don't have a full hot cold shower, by the way. It's like warm, and then I'll do a cold plunge, I call it, at the end, where I just turn it freezing cold.
I like
that's
it,
the secret.
It's actually nicer if you do it the other way, but fine. Right, sweet. Anyway, so okay, cool. So with that being said, though, like you just said, though, you've got ways of viewing this situation, and sometimes it's easier to control your narrative in your head about how you perceive in a situation and how you're not. So I'm curious as to how you personally flip the perspective to work in your favor, I guess, when you are faced with potentially, a bit of adversity like this year is already sort of proven to be, and again, how you could then would communicate that out to your clients.
So I just think it's all about who you're exposing yourself to online as well. I think that's a massive thing, like, because if you're surrounded by 5 people who are panicking and going like, the end of the world's near, and like, this is so shit, this is horrific, you're going to have that similar headspace because you're not looking at it from a different angle. Like, I knew, like I said, when the first lockdown happened in March, I knew, because of the people I'd exposed myself to previously and currently, that this was a huge opportunity in terms of the stock market. So you just got to look for new opportunities. Like right now, I'm just going to look to focus on expanding my online coaching, like, because that's always been an ambition of mine. Yeah. So I'm going to spend this next 6 weeks building out my home office, doing different tasks, which maybe I didn't have time for previously because I was so busy in the day-to-day hustle. And you just start doing self-development, like just work on yourself and chill out as well, like to a degree. Like, obviously, don't just waste the whole time, but learning. I know we've all learned to switch off a bit more than usual this last year, but there's nothing wrong with just chilling out a little bit in this time as well, because I'll tell you this now, we won't ever have times like this in the future. Like, I mean, it's unheard of, isn't it, really, the amount of free time we're having at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
With my clients, I just tell them to write small little goals out and aim to achieve them, like during the lockdown, to give you focus. And it could be little goals or routines. Like for me now, like I've said to myself every morning after I've had the warm shower, I'm in the cold blast at the end just to wake myself up. Little things like little promises to yourself, I think, are really crucial in these times, like little routines and habits as well.
Cool. So let's go for it then, mate. Let's talk about what your goals are then, and how you've sort of gone about setting them, whether that's short term or long term. Obviously, a little bit of it's out of our control in terms of when we're, we can't necessarily say we want to travel to 6 countries this year because we might not get to any. But for example, what are you thinking?
So I'm at the moment speaking to a Chinese manufacturer who I'm trying to make some glute bands for my girls for. Well, I say my girls, my clients, because pretty much I've found in the market, there's just you've got 2 issues. They're either really bland and boring, or they're the wrong size and the wrong strength. Like there's not really a company right now or a brand which does it perfectly, in my opinion. And going back to victories in the last lockdown, I'll call them, and last year, when in the second lockdown, or I think they blend together, don't they? I think it was the first lockdown, the 2 it's like being in prison, isn't it? It's like it just blends the time. But I remember there was two significant things I'm taking away from 2020, which I haven't really spoke about on my social media yet. It was like the stock market and learning about that was huge, and then deciding to niche into glute training with foot and female training in general.
You are Worcester's answer to Brett Contreras, aren't you, mate?
I want to be the UK's answer to Brett Contreras. That's my ambition. Like, I love that man as a coach, but I also just enjoy, like, it just happens to be a coincidence that that's what my niche has developed to. Like, ever since day one, I've always preferred training girls. I just get on with them. I have good banter. And it's all, they remind me of myself a bit more, like in the sense of you're intimidated to go to a gym and like, you're not like, you normally haven't got much experience. And it's just, I just see myself in that kind of their process and journey, I think, as well. Yeah. It just inspires me when that, and they, some of the faces and stuff you see when they achieve their first push up, it's like so significant, like, or a pull up, like, sounds like nothing to some people, but to them it's big, like, or, and they lift their first 100-kilo hip thrust. Like, you can't, the feeling it gives me to empower someone to have that strength and knowledge is just second to none.
Yeah. Nice, man.
Yeah. And what was the question again? I'm really bad.
So that's cool, man. So we're talking about goal setting for this year. And,
okay, so goal setting. So my goals are to go down this glute band route and just hopefully get a sample in with Rona. I call it Rona. With Corona and everything else, it's just it has messed up, like, importing into the UK. So I'm just trying that out. But
especially
pretty much,
China,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And pretty much, if I had to say my ambition, I haven't really got much focus on travel too much. It's all in on my business. Like, I'm just obsessed with trying to make myself financially stable and free, to be totally honest. Like, that's always been my ambition since a young age.
You got targets to hit?
Yeah, I have, but I don't want to say them really, because I don't mind saying them, but then I don't want to sound like an idiot if I miss it. Do you know what I mean? I know that's probably a backwards way of thinking, but I'd love to level up to like the 100K level mark with like an online business. That would be my first massive milestone, I'll call it. Whether or not I hit it this year, I don't know, but it's just, it will be a matter of time till I hit that. So if I had to give it a number, like, sorry, I'll just say it, like, it's probably the 6-figure mark I want to try and hit somehow. Yeah. So I'm spending all my time in my bedroom trying to figure that out. That's my ambition.
Mate, I'm pretty sure it's on my board here somewhere. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's on there. 100K.
100K, mate. It's a big number. It's like, to me, going back to fitness, right, and how it relates to goal setting for me, like, when you first go into the bench press, for example, as a lad, the 100-kilo club is the big boy. Like, that's the daddy everyone's chasing.
2 plates,
mate. I'll tell you this now. 2-plate club, like, that's the one. And I say the same for the girls who hit for us. I say, look, the 100 club is the massive milestone, and the 140, then so on. But when it took me years to get there, right? Absolutely years. And when you've achieved that goal after putting the hours in, the hard work, to me, the 100-kilo bench press achievement is no different to a £100,000 income goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
you've just got to, like, say you're at 20 grand right now, 30 grand, and you want to get to the 100 grand. You've just got to reverse engineer what you got to do and put the hours in like you do in the gym. Because you say you start on a 50-kilo bench press, what's the difference? Yeah. 100%. It's just a different game to play, isn't it? It's a different game, and you need that.
You need the accumulation of the sets and reps. Like, for me, like, I'm just trying to take little actions every single day that's gonna, move the needle hopefully long term. And
that's all it is. Little victories.
I've got like a decent setup in this house that I moved into in November. I've got like a little whiteboard. I've got a big whiteboard. So the big whiteboard's designated to like the year, if you like. And then the little whiteboard is updated every day with whatever, the top 2 to 3 things that are going to be the difference maker in terms of moving that business forward.
What are your goals? I'm curious to hear. I love hearing goals. Like, goals do excite me because it makes people dream.
Mate, I'll read them out to you. So 100K turnover is literally the first thing next to business on my board. We then got I want full boot camps every weekend. I'm defining that as 10 plus, whether they're online or in person. This one's a little bit more challenging at the moment, but I'd like to be doing 20 sessions of PT a week, and then just get a bit more successful with the merchandise that I'm doing for my business. With Faber, which is CrossFit Faber, which is the gym that the CrossFit gym that I work at between Coventry and Leamington. I really, really, really want to get them to 200 members in terms of my impact. And then I've launched another business, which is a product business with a friend. I'm not going to say exactly what it is just yet, just because we're still in the prototyping phase. But
any industry, could you give a detail?
Yeah, I guess like interior design, artwork sort of stuff. But awesome. It'll be like a product, and I really want to get that launched, and we've got like a couple of, I want to be hitting like sales targets for that. So those are like the main things. And then in my personal life, like, I want to train 300 times this year.
Nice, specific that is. I like that.
Well, that
I've
means
not heard people say it in that perspective. You know, I'm trying 300 times this time. That's a good way of putting it, though. I like that.
Yeah. Whereas, like, you know, that means you're only missing 65 days, which is really your rest days anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to do 52 podcasts across different podcast platforms. And then I've got some like personal finance goals as well. So I'm doing like a lifetime ISA to buy my first property. So I want to make sure I hit the limit for that. And then yeah, like I've got like a rainy day fund, but also I mean I'm in the stocks and shares a little bit as well, but they've taken a back seat recently, but I'm actually getting back into that. I'm reading The Naked Trader at the moment and just trying to, again, like similar to what you did in that first lockdown, just learn as much as possible. So
what's
I'm
your focus with
absorbing.
that? Yeah, what's your kind of strategy then with investing, would you say?
It's well, when I first started off, like I was just went about it the wrong way, especially I think I just didn't really get my head around fees and stuff like that. I use Hargreaves Lansdown for my
oh yeah,
broker.
If you're doing quick trading.
Yeah, so the stuff I was buying, I thought, hang on to this long term, but realized that I was putting in too little really. So I've been recently just allowing the pot to accumulate. And then as well, that gives me a bit more time to sort of strategize about who I'm going to invest into. And yeah, that's really it at the moment, man. I'm not really that deep into it, so I've got a lot of learning to do on that front. But
definitely,
as you can hear, mate, lots of goals. And one of the things that I've done with my housemates here, started an accountability board. Basically, we've written down what we want to do each week, how many times we want to do it. We'll tick it off, and if we each achieve 70% plus of those things, we get a reward as a house. If one of us misses it, there's things that are going to keep us accountable. So I'm in charge of week one. So if we all do 70% plus, we get a Domino's at the end of it. If one of us misses, everyone has to do 100 burpees, and that person will be doing all the house chores the following week.
I like that. Wait, did you come up with that yourself then, or is that?
It's a little bit. I guess the idea was kind of born from Atomic Habits by James Clear. That book.
That's on the bookshelf to read. That's come from Amazon recently.
Yeah,
I've been reading that. Like, this is what I'm going to do in lockdown, is just study and read. Like, you can either, going back to Slight Edge, you're going to make small decisions in these lockdowns, right, which are going to shape where you end up by the end of them, aren't you?
Yeah.
And that's the difference, I think. What people, to summarize what we've spoken about really, and to summarize everything, it's the small, seemingly insignificant decisions you keep making day to day, which are going to shape who you become and what you achieve.
Absolutely, mate.
Both fitness and everything. Like, I'm talking every aspect of your life.
Yeah, I agree, mate.
Be aware of them.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Right, I think that sounds like a good place to stop the recording. So I'm just gonna press stop on that, mate. But stay on for me, and we'll catch up after. Thank you really much for your time, mate. Where can people find you online?
Pleasure,
just real quick.
JackWright.pt is my Instagram. That's the main place you'll find me. I have dabbled in YouTube. That's something else I'm going to be looking at getting back into with the lockdown planning and what I'm going to move into with that. But a lot of it right now is I've been kind of staying to myself, low key, and just kind of cracking on my own goals really, and yeah, working with my clients obviously. But yeah, appreciate it, Alex, honestly, and I hope it wasn't too like shoddy and all over the place, because this is my first podcast and you've took my podcast virginity, mate. So
my pleasure, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Pop the cherry, mate.